Jesus and pray about it. I'm not weak. I'm not crazy. These are some of the common things I hear when I tell people what I do for a living. See, I'm a mental health therapist. Oh God, y'all, I said that word, mental health. You know, we don't talk about mental health in the Black community, and that keeps a lot of people suffering in silence. So yes, as a mental health therapist, I listen to people talk all day. So first, let's explain what does mental health mean. Truthfully, it's the overall well-being of your mind. The issue we really have is about this word called mental illness. See, mental illness is just something that affects the way you act, the way you think, or you behave. And we all know there's times we act differently, we behave differently, and we feel differently. That's what mental health is. So as a mental health therapist, y'all, I sit and I talk about mental health disorders. Those are words like anxiety, depression, PTSD, bipolar. Those are examples of mental health disorders. So, as a therapist, I get great joy of helping people heal. I often get asked, why did you become a mental health therapist? I wish I had this really great, heartfelt story, but honestly, I've always just wanted to change the world or make an impact. And somehow, through my journey, I've gotten called to this world of mental health. It has been an incredibly eye-opening world. See, I get to help people heal. And I believe if I can heal one person, I can heal a family, and then I can heal from that family, I can help heal a community, and then I believe I'm changing the world with each and every person that I sit across from and we talk about what is hurting them. See, my goal as a mental health therapist is to create a culturally competent and culturally safe space to help people heal and grow and be the best person that they could be, live their best lives. See, because right now in this world, hurt people hurt people. And we are not healing our families. And because we're not healing families, one person parents from a place of hurt. They parent from a place of alcoholism. And then they pass that on to their children, and their children, and their children. And therefore, we keep living in a world of hurt. And so my goal is truly to help change the world one person at a time by talking about that bad word, y'all, of mental health. So, what exactly does this look like, being a mental health therapist? Well, see, I have this thing called confidentiality, so I can't exactly tell y'all all the business. But let's make someone up together. How about that? Let's call her Stacy, okay? So, Stacy, you work with her. You all get together occasionally for lunch, happy hour, dinner, do things like that. Y'all talk, y'all met each other. So you know each other pretty well. You do the same job. So one day, Stacy says, hey, let's go to dinner. You're like, sure. So you're sitting at dinner. She's like, whew, girl, I am just so tired. I'm overwhelmed. I'm exhausted. I am just so over everything right now. I feel like I'm really like losing my mind. And you're looking at her like, not much in our job has changed, so kind of curious what's going on. She's like, I'm just so stressed out. I'm so overwhelmed. See, right now, every time I try to lay down at night, I go to sleep, but it's like I can't shut my brain off. I've got 10 computer tabs open at all times, and I'm just clicking, and I can't figure out what to do. My heart's always beating. I wake up, and I got butterflies in my stomach for no reason. And you're looking at her like, okay. And she's like, and you know, I got this work trip coming up. She's like, yeah, you got a presentation out of town. I know, it's out of town. What if something happens to my family while I'm gone? What if, oh my God, what if they restructure the job? What if I come back to no job? What if I have no job? What if I fall and hit my head? What if I get sick? Oh my God, what am I gonna do? So clearly, you're looking at Stacy like, girl, you tripping. Some of y'all out there might even be thinking, whew, Stacy sounds a little crazy. No, the reality is, it sounds like Stacy has undiagnosed and untreated anxiety. There's that word, anxiety. Anxiety is a mental health disorder. And actually, anxiety means feeling uneasy and nervous about something that you are not in control of. See, we all have anxiety. We all get nervous about things. But the reality is, sometimes anxiety can get to a place where it stops you sometimes from getting a good night's sleep. It can change your heartbeat. Sometimes your stomach hurts and you don't know why your stomach hurts. Your palms are sweaty. See, when it gets to that place, that's when you should come and see me. That's when you should go see a therapist. Because at that point, it sounds like it is really starting to affect your overall life. And so oftentimes, though, we don't recognize the signs and symptoms of a mental health disorder because why? What goes on in this house stays in this house. And we were never taught to talk about the things that are affecting us daily. So if I'm uncomfortable mentally and emotionally, I was taught you just hold it on. Why? Because it stays in this house. But those are the things that keep people suffering in silence. Those are the things that are having people not sleep. Those are the things that keep those generational curses from going on and on because we know it has to stay in this house. And also, we don't know what it looks like because we never were taught to talk about it. So oftentimes, we miss those signs and those symptoms. So what do you do if someone does say, I have some emotional or mental distress? People are like, I don't know what to do with that. It's not that difficult. Start with just being a listening ear. Just listen to what they say with no judgment. Listen, help them figure out, how do you find a therapist? We have this great thing called Google now. You can find just about any and everything on it. All you have to do is look them up. They want someone who is a male therapist. You can look that up. If you want a black therapist, you can look that up. But the biggest thing is just start with being a kind and listening ear. The other part is be knowledgeable. If someone is saying, I'm in emotional distress, just let them know that there is help for them and they do not have to suffer in silence. The other thing is, let's say when you and Stacy are sitting there at dinner, and if she looked at you and was like, ooh, I have a pain in my chest, or if I have a lump, I hope you wouldn't look at her and say, girl, it's just a lump, you'll be all right. I hope you wouldn't say, just pray about it, it should go away. No, I really hope you would turn to her and say, go to a doctor. And just like that, if you had pain in your chest, a lump in your chest, you tell someone to go to a doctor, well, guess what? If they're in mental health distress, if they're in emotional distress, go to a doctor. Find a therapist. We have to do a better job at looking at our mental health as our physical health. When we are in physical pain, we go seek a doctor. Well, guess what? We are in emotional pain and we are in mental pain and we need to go see a doctor. We have to acknowledge that mental health is physical health. It is a part of our overall body. We are mind, body, and soul. We are connected. And so when one part is off, all parts are off. So just like we know, how come most people's stomach hurts sometimes when they have anxiety? Because the mind and the body is connected. Mental health is physical health. And we have to do better at when we are in any kind of distress, go to the doctor. And acknowledge that, hey, guess what? The doctors can't really find anything going on with my stomach. My heart's racing, my hands are sweating, and the doctors are like, I'm good. They told me to go to a therapist. Then go to a therapist. Stop putting that off. Often, time and time again, we wait and we don't go. See, just like you would go to a doctor if you broke your foot, because after a while, you need your foot. It hurts to walk on it for too long, right? You need it. You need to walk. Even if you got to get crutches, it's a walking utensil. If you have to have a cast, you're going to walk. You're going to figure out one way or another. I've been having this foot for this long, and all of a sudden, this foot is causing me distress. I'm going to go figure it out, right? Why wouldn't you figure it out if your mind is in distress, if your emotions in distress? Because guess what? You're going to come see a therapist, and just like you might get crutches, you might get a cast, well, guess what? I'm going to give you some tools and utensils to help you feel better. What I'm going to say is, hey, let's try some deep breathing. Why deep breathing? Because that can slow your heart rate down. Because sometimes when your heart is going so fast, you speak fast. Your breathing will change. If you're not breathing the correct way, you will pass out. That's what hyperventilation is. That's why I'm going to say do deep breathing. Why am I going to tell you to do some yoga or meditation? I'm going to tell you to do that because that teaches you how to be mindfully present in your body. That teaches you how to slow down. Oftentimes, anxiety makes us feel we're going a mile a minute. So just like if you went to physical therapy and got different techniques and walking things to help you walk better and to have your foot heal, guess what? A therapist is going to do the exact same thing. Our goal is to help you heal and to help you get back to being your best self and walking on both feet. So That is a key thing you have to remember is next time you feel like I got a pain somewhere, please also take a moment and be like, how am I feeling? That's that word, that feeling word.
Welcome to the First Coast Black Nurses Association Mental Health Summit. Today we are sponsored by none other than AARP, and we just would like to say thank you for your sponsorship. We also have Florida Blue, and we have MTB Consultant, as well as African Americans Mental Health Initiative. We want to say thank you to each and every last one of our sponsors for making this Mental Health Summit possible. I would like to introduce you to Ms. Justine Conley of AARP. She's the State Director of Advocacy of AARP. She joined AARP in 2016. Prior to AARP, for 19 years, she was the Director and Vice President of Young Life. She finished as the Vice President of that organization, where she mentored many youths across the U.S., including the Midwest. She's also the founder of J. Conley Consultant. So without further ado, welcome, Justine Conley.
Thank you, and it's always my pleasure. And the reason why we sponsor these kinds of events is because AARP, the oldest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, really works to help people 50 plus choose how they live as they age. And so this is one of the ways that we want to be supportive. And so thank you for having me.
Thank you. So I want to start with my very first question, because we're talking about mental health, but we got to think about mental health as it relates to the older population. So could you talk to us about different obstacles the older population face?
Absolutely. So with seniors and older adults, they are living through first the COVID-19, like many of us are. So many are dealing with isolation. Many are dealing with loneliness. Many are dealing with situations, medical, and otherwise. They're dealing with a whole lot of issues and areas that they have on the regular basis, but then COVID-19 just exacerbated, made it even more difficult to deal with and know how to navigate. And so there's a lot of different things. And then folks prey on seniors in ways that we have not seen before, in unprecedented ways. And so we want to make sure that seniors are protected from fraud, protected from other ways that predators prey on them, dealing with and trying to deal with them during their isolation, take advantage of them during those times. So, but isolation and loneliness is one of the really big things that we've seen during COVID-19.
That's good that you guys were able to identify those things. Could you tell me what role has AARP played in helping seniors to overcome these different issues?
So mental health is not one of our major areas, but people 50 plus. And so again, we're always talking about what are some of the things that we can do to help you choose how you live as you age. And so that involves everything, including mental illness, mental wellness. And so we, during COVID especially, had a call-in line where you could have a friendly voice to call and check on you once a week. That was aarp.org/community connections. So that still is in operation. We have had every kind of virtual event that you can imagine, from yoga to how to get on Zoom so you can know how to connect with your family members. We've had cooking classes, we've had couch concerts, we've had resources for caregivers. So every kind of virtual event that you can imagine, we've participated in to help seniors, one, be connected. And so in helping to identify some of the ways that they can be taken advantage of and trying to avoid some of those things. So those are some of the ways. Fraud prevention, really, again, like I said, really, really big during COVID-19, and it affects your mental health. When someone takes advantage of you and causes you to lose your money, or causes you to get involved with them in a romance scheme. So again, dealing with isolation and loneliness and trying to provide resources in those areas. And so those are some of the things that we've done. And not just identifying, but again, making connections with other people as well. Those are some of the things that we've tried to do during this season.
Thank you. I guess my question would be for you, Justine, what type of advice would you give to a senior that's sitting home alone? All of the children, you know, they did their job, raised their kids, they're out of the house, and maybe their kids are like 1,000 miles away, and they are alone. They have absolutely nobody. What type of advice would you give someone that's alone, no family, and maybe they're going through medical issues? It could even be mental health issues, but they are alone. They have nobody. What type of advice, if there was a senior or older adult watching us today, what would be your advice?
So I don't try to give advice. What I try to do is offer resources.
Okay.
Because that's what we do, is connect people to resources. So especially one of the first places I have people start here locally is Elder Source. And so Elder Source is the AAA, the Area's Agency on Aging. And so you start there by calling their 800 number. You can find it. Sorry, I don't have it right here in memory, but you can find that number. And I'm going to look at my phone and hopefully get that for you. But Area's Agency on Aging, whatever the issue is that you're dealing with, they will help to connect you. AARP and the Alzheimer's Association came up with this a service called Community Resource Finder. So whatever resource you need, you go to crf.org/ whether it's caregiving, /fraud, /loneliness, isolation, whatever. And like you said, I've been on the AARP website, and there are all kinds of resources. So that's another thing. Looking, if you have a faith community, tapping into someone in your faith community, letting someone know, I need help, not trying to go it alone, but how do I seek the help that I need? Telling somebody that I am by myself. Could you check on me? Asking for what you need. Also, staying connected. And so that we've worked hard to try to get people Zoom training so that you can connect with your loved one, that you can find ways to go online and find other resources. So like the doctor said, or like the therapist said earlier, don't go it alone. You are not alone, and finding those resources, because there are people that want to help you. So knowing who those people are and going and asking for what you need and getting the help you need.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It is very important whenever you're doing anything on mental health to always include seniors, because seniors, you can learn so much.
Absolutely.
Just sit down and have a conversation. You would be amazed, a wealth of knowledge. But we got to think about mental health, because mental health is on the rise, and that is the reason why we're having the Mental Health Summit. And again, we would like to say thank you to AARP for being our prime sponsor of our event. Thank you.
My AARP membership opens the door to hundreds of unexpected benefits. From travel and dining to health and wellness, there's more than I could have imagined. Here, take a look. Finding benefits near me is easy with the AARP website or on my phone with the AARP Now app, which also gives me access to my digital membership card, news, and local events. I can even use my membership to get a phone discount. Plus, now that I've picked up my groceries, I can also eat a little better with delicious, healthy recipes on the AARP website. I can go see movies with free screenings through Movies for Grown-Ups. I can hit the beach or go on tours with travel planning and resources for every budget. And I can easily hit the open road with access to motorcycle and auto insurance, car rental discounts, and a driver's safety course. As you can see, membership has a lot to offer, giving me access to insurance, work and jobs resources, financial and health tips, as well as shopping and grocery discounts. Not to mention there's loads of information to help me take care of my mom. And there's plenty more at aarp.org/explore now. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go out and use some of my member benefits.
And thank you so much, Justine. Thank you so much for all of that information. And now I would like to introduce you guys to Ann Marlowe. Ann Marlowe is the CEO and founder of AIM High, African American Mental Health Initiatives. Ann Marlowe is a graduate of Mississippi State University. Ann Marlowe has done so much, countless resources for the community. I can't wait for you guys to have an opportunity to meet her. She just received several awards for all of her work for the mental health community. Ann Marlowe is not only a founder of the African American Mental Health Initiatives, but she is also a Sunday school teacher for over 30 years. At this point, I want to introduce you to Ann Marlowe.
Well, hello. It's good to be here, Dr. Neal.
Yes, welcome. Welcome to
Thank
our
you.
mental health initiative. We realize
you.
mental health is such an important topic. We would
Yes.
like for you to share some of your resources. But first, could you tell us about AIM High, African American Mental Health Initiative, and what does it mean?
Okay. Thank you, first of all, for just having me here. I am so elated that our community is, really starting to focus so much on mental health, which is something that is going to be here, I think, for the duration. AIM High stands for the African American Mental Health Initiative, and we lovingly call it AIM High because we are aiming high. We are faith-based, but we also incorporate all aspects into this, regardless. Initially, AIM High, we were focusing on African American community. But at one of our symposiums, we actually had other nationalities that actually came to the seminar. And that's when I realized that, mental health has no, it doesn't discriminate. Race, creed, or color. And so even though, yes, we know that there is such a stigma in the African American community, but in the community at large, there is a stigma. I'm finding that out. So as an advocate, and when you really think of the word advocate, AIM High really started as a result of myself going through something mentally. And, a state of depression, at the death of one of my sisters. And in so going through this, you're ashamed, really, when you think of the word mental, that's such a stigma in itself. Mm-hmm. So as a result of that, I began to advocate for myself, really trying to understand this whole mental health piece and to realize that anything that you can't cope with is a potential. It's not to say that you are, crazy. Anything that you can't cope with, again, is something that you need to deal with then, instead of letting it sit and simmer in you. And eventually when it comes out explosive. And I do know we have therapists here today, and they will be able to go so much further. But in being an advocate over these last 7 years, I've sat in on so many where the therapists are there. And I will tell you, this this field, this what we're in now, many don't understand it. Many don't understand it, whether you're Christian or not. But ladies and gentlemen, please know that as we have been advocating over the years, we've learned so much, and there's so many resources out there, and I'll be giving you just a few. And at the end of this, I will definitely give you my Aim High's number, our email address, so that we can assist you by you calling and just asking, where are the resources? That's the beginning of it. So many don't understand that there's plenty of resources. It's just knowing how to navigate through it. And so in going through what I went through, I navigated through it. And that's when I began to say, if I had issues in trying to navigate and how to get insurance, getting the right therapist, and you have to wed yourself with the right one. It's not just going to the first one, but finding the one that you feel the most confident and comfortable in being able to talk to, especially about things that are so deep-rooted, such as dealing with, depression or anything like that.
Thank you. I notice you have an acronym, and it's Support, Education, Empowerment, and Dedication. What does that mean exactly?
Well, our vision is to sow seeds. And so in sowing these seeds, what you just said, the support, everyone needs at least peer support or someone when you are navigating through a mental health crisis of any sort. Education. Aim High is high on that. And so when we once a month have our symposiums, which we call village talks, that village talk mentality, where the village just comes and you have the therapists and you have the clergy, because we're more than just one aspect. We're mind, body, soul, and spirit. But that support and that education, and then empowering. After you give them the education and the support, then you want that person to leave there with this information right here, to feel empowered to take control of your life. And then the D for dedication. Dedicated. We're dedicated to this, and if we're all as a community are dedicated to helping each other, from our families to our coworkers to our friends, we're going to see, as what I have began to see, a community that is more together. We're together. Just last week, we had our 7th annual mental health walk. And, we walk for everything, but to walk for our mental health, to take back that. And so in the community, I was blown away at the outpouring of the general public that came, that started saying, we want to take back our mental health. And so, again, that is what Aim High's sole purpose is, to be an advocate in the community, wedding everyone together so that we can get questions answered, minds, I'm not going to necessarily say healed, because it's an ongoing process, but being able to maneuver and to live your best life, to live your best life now.
That's beautiful. Could you share some of the resources?
Yes, indeed. Of course, NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness, they were at the walk on last week, and the plethora of information. I've had the pleasure of working with them in the community before, and so we champion each other. Another is the Community Rehabilitation Center, of which Aim High at times over the course of the last few years, once a month, we have actually held our symposiums at the Community Rehabilitation Center. Think about the word rehabilitation. It's rehabilitating. Another, which we just recently found out, which was a wonderful resource. I mentioned earlier that when you are maneuvering this, one of the first things that's going to come up when you go to look for assistance, the question is going to be asked, do you have insurance? What type of insurance do you have? And so we recently had, as I said, a symposium in which one of the speakers there, their company is the Westonian Health Advocates. And so with this on here, and I just want to take the time to even say that it states that you can get insurance, sometimes $0 month plans available. Listen to what I just said. 0-month plans available. So that in itself, for anyone out there feeling that I don't have insurance, so I can't get any type of assistance, but there is something out there for you. You just have to know where to go, what questions to ask. So Aim High has, leafed through a lot of this and took out some of the busy work to be able to help you. Okay.
Thank you. So in your final words, what would be your final words to the mental health community?
Is to know that you have resources out there. You have people such as myself, advocates. Don't ever feel that you can't talk to someone and find out how to begin. If you realize that you may have, even a thought that something is going on, if you're depressed, talk to someone. I did. And it made all the difference in the world. I just don't want you to lose hope. When you lose hope and you can't cope, but you can, because you have a community. Aim High is one of them, and all of those on this panel today. But just answer the question when it's asked of you. When you're asked, how are you? Be honest enough with yourself to know, okay, I'm not where I want to be. And then receive the help that's going to come to you. And I promise you, it is going to come to you. And when it does, you will then know that you too, you can aim high, because ultimately we want to aim high and he will reach down and bless you. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you just being a part of our panel today, our panel discussion. And I'm sure
Definitely my pleasure.
Thank you. I'm sure that you guys, at the end, we are sharing resources and contact information. So thank you. Next will be the therapist. Thank you. And now we're going into our second segment with the therapists. We have two esteemed therapists with us today. I would like to introduce you. First, we would like to just say thank you so much for joining us, because without therapists, how would we be able to come up with helping people with mental health issues? So having therapists around, just to have a listening ear or someone to talk to, is so comforting to help you come up with a plan, with a goal, in order to have best outcomes for the best optimal care. So I just want to say thank you to all of the therapists in the world, because without you, we wouldn't be able to solve the mental health issues of the world. The first therapist I would like to introduce you to is none other than Mr. Maryland Tony Baker. And Mr. Baker comes to us from Jacksonville, Florida. He is licensed in Jacksonville, Georgia, and Virginia. He's also an adjunct professor and a consultant. He's also a motivational and wellness speaker and author. So, Mr. Maryland, he has a thriving practice. Thank you so much for joining us. Could you tell us something about you?
Sure, absolutely. I'm actually licensed in Florida, Georgia, and West Virginia. Former adjunct professor, and so it's a pleasure to be here, and I really look forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Baker. The second therapist I would like to introduce you to is Ms. Debbie Del Rosario. Miss Debbie I'm so happy to have you here. She is with Florida Blue, and we have done countless events with Florida Blue, so we're very happy to have the collaboration. She's a licensed clinical social worker, and she works in a space with adults, children, as well as adolescents, and that is so needed. Thank you so much for joining us. Miss Debbie is also a director of the Behavioral Health Clinical Program. Could you please share and give us some information?
Yeah, thank you so much again for letting us have this opportunity to be here. At Florida Blue, we truly believe there is no health without mental health, and are finding every opportunity we can to make sure that we're integrating behavioral health care and services and opportunities for members to continue their progress towards a positive life.
Thank you.
you.
So at this point, we are going to show several videos, and guess what? Our therapists on stage will analyze and give us different views and insights. So we're going to start with the very first video.
Dad, he divorced her for a light-skinned woman. And after that, that's when my earliest sign of mental illness came into play, because I thought it to be strange that my mom didn't like me because of the color of my skin. And I got picked on. I got called names. I didn't get treated like my brothers and sisters did. My dad didn't treat me that way, so me and my dad, we still have a great relationship. My mom married a guy shortly after her and my dad divorced, and he was an alcoholic. He physically abused her, and me and my brothers and sisters, we would help her fight every night when he got drunk, and she would never leave him. So when my dad got visitations to see us on the weekends, that was our happy time in life. My dad was like Bill Cosby to us, like the Cosby Show. He had high expectations for us. He taught us things versus what my mom didn't do. As life went on for me in my teenage years, my dad, he took us away from my mom. And then he wanted to send us back in my teenage years, I'll say that. He wanted to take us back to our mom to live with her. And I ran away from home, me and my brother, when I was 13 years old, ran away. I think that's where the drug abuse started coming, using drugs at an early age, marijuana, drinking, having sex at an early age. Just living a life not to go home, just living on the edge, running away, stealing, doing all kind of things not to go to the mental illness of my mother, the alcoholism, the dysfunction, the unloving environment. And this went on for years, maybe until I turned an adult. From the age 13 to 18, I ran away from home. My mom never came looking for me. I had sex with guys just for a place to stay. I sold drugs. When I turned 18 years old, I caught a sales of crack cocaine charge. So I've been to jail several times. I was molested by a family member. Nothing was done about it. No one ever stood up for me. So it's just like depression, rejection, So later on in life, after jail, drugs, life took a toll on me. I had 4 children. I had to raise them on my own. Their father is still in federal prison from 1999 until now. Being on drugs, I've been off of drugs, off of cocaine for 15 years now. And it feels good. I didn't want to stop. It's just certain things in the drug game. When you have bad drugs, some people stop and some people don't. I got some bad drugs. I didn't like the way it tastes, and it stopped. I smoked drugs for almost 15 years, 15 and a half years. And my children were the turning point for me. I had 3 daughters, 1 son, 1 grandson, and they were the turning point for me to, get my life together and say that I have something to live for. I found God. God found me. He saved me. I've been through a lot. I mean, it's just, I'm kind of nervous here. So I've been through a lot, and the stronger thing in me is I made it through all the hard parts. I made it through it. I made it through it at an early age. I had to come to the realization that you're stronger than what you think you are. You got something to live for, you know, and through therapy, through prayer, through my church, and just the will to not be the same anymore, and just to realize that, hey, you're stronger than what you think you are. I overcame drug addiction. I overcame abuse. I was no longer allowing anybody to abuse me. I was stabbed. I had my jaw broke. I mean, countless black eyes. And I would never leave the abuser. And then I became the abuser in relationships. So for the most part, everything that I went through, it kind of made me a bad person, like the people who were abusing me and doing things to me. And I knew that wasn't my heart. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be like this. I have children. I don't want them to live like I lived. So again, God saved me, and I kept going to church. And of course, I still wasn't delivered from certain things. And I was trying to live right, trying to still straddle the fence over here, trying to do this and that. And I finally just realized this is not making me happy. So I had to choose. Are you going to live in the past and be still depressed, be on drugs? Are you going to move forward and look back and see where you came from and what you made it through? So the strength that I realize I have now is what really got me through. My children wanting to have better and be better to them, and helping people. I think that's what my calling is. Just like everything I've been through, the testimony will help people to say that even though we've been through a lot of stuff in the beginning, life doesn't stay that way, and life is what you make it. So for the most part with me, I got through it because I got through it. If that makes sense. I got through the hard part back then. So when I look back to realize I got through it, you don't have to live in fear or shame of anything anymore. You got through it. So I hold on to that. I made it through the hardest part. And there's no need to be depressed. There's no need to be suicidal. There's no need to be unforgiving and unloving because people are that way to you. I decided to be the better person. I decided to be somebody who doesn't want to hurt people, somebody who wants to help people, and a person who can understand a lot of things that happen to people that's out of their control at an early age. So that's pretty much my story, and I hope that I can help someone with it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for sharing your story. That is amazing. What I really like the more than anything is that she came to a crossroads and she had to decide, which direction am I going to take? Am I going to live in the past, or am I going to change the direction of my future? So at this point, I would like to give this to the therapists on the stage. How would you guys like to address that?
Yeah, first off, again, Ms. Heather, just the courage to come forward and being able to explain kind of your path and your life journey that you've gone through. You've gone through a lot of feeling less than, it sounds like, most of your life. And, feel very unfortunate that the normal love that you would expect from a mother was not available for you, but glad that you had other resources and other support system with your dad and being able to help with that. It does take an opportunity every day. I think about, it becomes hard when day after day you're dealing with, negative mechanisms, negative thoughts, depression, just continuing spiraling down a negative pathway. It's sometimes that one step, that one decision that makes a big change or a difference. It sounds like you definitely found that inspiration or ability to look at your family, look at those around you and wanting to make things better and moving forward, and that takes great strength. It's a true testimony of, the strength within you that you wanted to make yourself better. And that's a choice that I think we all can make every day, is that we can have an opportunity that is today the way that you want your life to be. If it's not, what is that step? And sometimes it's those small steps that just get you one step closer and closer to something that you want to have as a more positive life.
Thank you so much. Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I think Heather, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your story. It was amazing. You dealt with a lot of complex trauma, and I think sometimes it can get convoluted in the process of you trying to get healed. And it was interesting that throughout your journey, you talked about being abused, and then at one point you became the abuser. And typically but sometimes when you go through traumatic situations like that, things do kind of change. But I want to go back to something very interesting that she talked about, or that you talked about, that was very powerful, and I think this is prevalent, certainly in the African American community, but probably other communities as well. You talked about the texture of your skin, and that's a very powerful component. Some say that when you're light-skinned, you kind of get a pass as an African American because you're closer to being Caucasian, and if you're dark-skinned, you may be farther away. And it's interesting that because you were light-skinned, which is in the most cases is acceptable, you were rejected in that instance by your mother, which I think is a powerful tool. And I think that's something that if in therapy, that's something that I would certainly explore as well, because I can imagine when you look at yourself, because you look at yourself like every day, there may be voices or things that trigger and remind you of that. That's the first thing. The second thing I would also say, what you continue to say, is that you're an overcomer and you got through it. And you really are an overcomer and you have got through it. But I want to also acknowledge the fact that you have the wisdom to say, I still have more to go. I still have some additional things I need to do. And I think therapy would really help you to kind of put things in perspective, help you to put things into place as to where you're able to get certain things validated. Because a lot of times when you've been rejected, particularly as a child, you need some level of validation. And let me say this too. Childhood trauma impacts people differently. Just as someone may take the same medication, they may not get the same results from the same element. So you may know someone that may have gone through a similar situation, and they may have made it through seemingly, and they may be soaring while you may feel as if you're not. And I just want to encourage people like you, Heather, and others, don't compare your traumatic situation to others, because how trauma impacts you may be differently from how it impacts other people. So, Heather, you're a very powerful person. You're more than a conqueror through Jesus Christ our Lord. You're a very passionate person, and I'm so amazed at the fact that out of all you've been through, you still desire to be a helper of people.
Thank you so much. Heather, keep reaching for the stars. And what I really like what he said, helper of the people, community service, giving back to others. And also what Debbie said, you found something, your children, you found something that was able to help you make a change in the crossroads, that you had to figure out, how am I going to change this situation? And you were able to pull inside, pull deep to come up with a solution. So I want to say thank you to both of our therapists for giving such sound insights to Heather. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Pastor Ardell Jones. I'm executive pastor of All People International Church in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm so honored to be with you to kind of tell a little bit about my story. I'm 46 years old. I met what was then my childhood sweetheart at 17 in high school. We went on from high school, got married, tried our best to do things right. We got married, had 2 kids, but it just didn't work out. After almost 18 years of marriage, we divorced. I didn't know divorce was going to be that hard. That's just the truth. I didn't know. Divorce put me in a spiral. It wrecked my life. I went from constantly being with my family, my wife, and constantly being with my children, my two girls, to barely seeing them. I went into depression. I was diagnosed with clinical depression and ASAD. People ask me all the time, what's ASD? We're used to kids having this. It's adult separation anxiety disorder. We're used to, that 5-year-old child in kindergarten, the mom leaves the first time and he runs and grabs her leg and he doesn't want her to leave. Yeah, we're used to children going this, but I was a grown man, a grown big man, and I was diagnosed with ASAD and clinical depression. I've been with my children their entire lives. Now, one day I'm with them, and then the next day, the next weeks, next months, I am not. It messed me up. I cried every day. I did not eat. I went from about 252 pounds to 208 pounds. Wasn't sick. I was in depression. I would be hungry, I guess, and I would go to a restaurant and I would order food, and I would sit there and wasn't used to eating by myself. So because I wasn't used to eating by myself, I would leave. I would literally order a plate of food. The food would come before me. I would look at the food, and I never would eat. My body never, after a while, my body never told me I was hungry. So next thing I know, I'm losing weight, I'm dropping weight, I'm dropping weight, I'm dropping weight. I would eat in community, meaning with the families together, people all around, I would eat then, but never by myself. I found myself then start playing with my gun. Have a 9mm, Taurus 9mm slim. It's very slim, so it can fit inside my waist anywhere I go. No one ever knows it's there. Found myself sitting at my counter, actually sitting at my parents' counter. Did I tell you, did I say that after I got divorced, I make sure my ex-wife had the home and with the children, and I moved back in with my parents? I moved back in the same room, not just the same room, but the same bed that I grew up in. I'm in my 40s. I'm in my parents' house. I'm away from my now divorced wife, away from my children that I've been with them every day of their life. There were times I would sit at the counter and I would pick my gun up and I would put my gun to my head because I just felt like I couldn't take it. To this day, I really can't tell you why I never pulled the trigger. Multiple times I put my gun to my head, but thanks be to God that I never pulled the trigger. People told me I needed to go to counseling, I need to see someone, but I'm not crazy. And that was a trigger. If someone said I was crazy, even though my actions kind of said that, if someone said that, I would get upset, I'd get mad. I'm African community. We don't going to therapy is taboo. We don't do that because everything that happens in our house stays inside our house. So we don't tell anyone our business. We don't talk to anyone. Not only that, not only am I African American, the African American community has taught me my entire life that we don't share our business. I'm a pastor. What do you mean a pastor needs therapy? I'm supposed to just pray, and when I pray, God's just supposed to miraculously just work everything out, and I'm not supposed to have to do anything. Prayer did not work in that particular situation. I needed more than prayer. It got so bad, my ex-wife said, you may need to go to therapy. I never forget having a conversation with my admin one day, and she says, Pastor, I made your appointment. I said, you made me an appointment with who? She said, I made an appointment with a therapist for you. She said, don't worry, they're not even in Jacksonville. I made them in another city. You just got to drive there on this particular day. You have therapy, and you need help. All these things I did. I was a man of God, loved God in everything, but depression that took over my life. Remember my first day going to therapy, I love my therapist. Listen, my therapist was amazing. Her name is Louise Osborne. She was amazing. I remember the first day I went to her, I'd never done this before. I mean, I counsel people, just cry, I've counseled people myself. I've never gone to therapy before. I walk inside here, and the first thing I see is this sofa, this couch. And I literally look, I said, oh my God, it's a sofa for real? And she looks at me, she said, yes, Ardell, it's a sofa, please sit down on it. I sit down on the sofa, and she begins to talk to me. And she's pushing me, pulling for me to talk back to her. And I refuse to talk. Why? Because my entire life, I was taught never to share what's going on in my life. As a man, as a black man, as part of African American culture, we just don't share those things. As a pastor, I mean, after weeks and weeks, that broke. I never forget the first time it broke. I was sitting there, and I remember tears beginning to roll down my eyes, and she handed me some tissue, and she said, it's okay. And I'm like, I don't believe I'm sitting here crying, telling you all my business. She helped me to a point where I shared everything with her. To a point where I stopped calling my kids every 5 minutes. ASAD got so bad, every 5-10 minutes I would pick up my phone and ask my kids, what are y'all doing? And they would say, well, Dad, we're doing the same thing we were doing 5 minutes ago. And I would sit on the side of the bed and I would hyperventilate because I couldn't take it. I was losing my life, and I thought the best way to get over it was to kill myself. I had $1 million life insurance policy over my head. If I could just die, my children would be taken care of. I wouldn't go through this stress, but not even understanding and knowing that God had more for my life. I went to this lady and I talked and I talked and I talked and I talked and I talked. I realized that a lot of things I was dealing with, some didn't even have to do anything with my divorce, with my children. It was things that in my life, in my past, in my youth, that I had blocked out and that I hid in my subconscious, in my psyche. I hid them, and now all these things are coming out because when I talk to her, now I'm not just being free for one thing, I'm being free from everything that is driving me to depression. My therapist became one of my best friends. I told her everything. I remember one time I walked inside her office after going through about 100 boxes of tissue. I walk in and she said, Ardell, when I saw you on the schedule, I got so excited. She said, I love talking to you. It's better than a soap opera. When she said that, I'm like, is that a compliment? I don't know how to take that. What is this? Is this a compliment? But I opened up. Went through clinical depression, ASAD, adult separation anxiety disorder. The devil desired to take me out. Gun to my head, multiple occasions. Lost so much weight, the devil tried to take me out. I remember I went to the doctor after I started going on my healing journey from going to therapy, going to my counselor and start healing. Doctor did my blood work and all those things he had to do. He came back, and when I first went in, he said, well, last time you were here, you were 250-something, you were 208 now, what happened? I looked at him and said, oh, depression. Of course, when I told the doctor this, he got nervous. He got so nervous. He's like, whoa. He stepped out and came back in. He went through this whole checklist. He said, I got some questions. I said, no, I'm not depressed now. But you asked me how I lost the weight. I lost the weight because I was depressed. But I'm good now because I got help. I'm good now. And I'll never forget, after he did all my work, he sent me my results. And what the devil meant for evil, in depression and adult separation anxiety disorder, God turned it for my good. Because I lost so much weight, now I was no longer pre-diabetic. Because I lost so much weight, I actually now have good cholesterol. My cholesterol count is now good. Because I lost so much weight, I had what they call, quote unquote, the old man disease. I had gout. Now my gout numbers are the lowest it's ever been. What the devil meant for evil, God turned that thing around, and he turned it around for my good. But can I tell you this? I'm a preacher, I'm a pastor, but can I tell you this? It wasn't just God. It was God and therapy. It wasn't just God and therapy. It was also my family. Because once they realized what happened, once they realized that I wasn't eating, once they realized that I was putting my gun to my head anytime I was alone, my family made it where I was never alone. They showed me love. They let me know that they cared. They let me know that it was going to be all right. So when I put those three things together, God, family, and therapy. When those three things went together, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that God, family, therapy saved my life. It made a difference in my life. God, family, and therapy. I tell you, yeah, pray. I prayed every day. Prayer is good. When I was dealing with depression, I prayed every single day. I still pray every single day now. I'm a pastor. It's part of my job. I talk to God. But I needed to talk to someone that was in human form. I needed to talk to someone I could just share my heart to. And that's what therapy got me. Now I'm here today because I made that step, the hard step, to talk to someone. And I'm here because God put me in the way of an amazing counselor who didn't beat me across the head. She brought me along gently until I was able to open up to her and tell her everything I was going through. Now today, some years later, I'm healthy. I'm whole. Remarried, I have a wonderful wife who's also an advocate for mental health. And we talk about this and we walk through this. She actually met her as I was walking through my life of depression. It amazed me that she saw how bad off I was, but she saw the potential that God had for my life. I'm forever grateful for that. Clinical depression, ASAD, putting a gun to my head multiple times. Sometimes just driving around in my car, just wishing I would die. Laying in the bed and not wanting to get out the bed because I just wanted the day to be over, because if nighttime came, then I could go to sleep and have to worry about everything I was going through. All those things. I didn't know what to do. But in the end, God, family, and therapy saved my life. Now I'm excited to be an advocate for mental health. I tell people all the time, listen, it's okay. It's okay if things go bad. It's okay if you shift. Let's talk about this. Let's get some counseling. I direct them to different counselors in the area. Let's get some counseling. Let's talk. I'm a licensed Christian counselor, so I can do some things like that. But sometimes you don't need to talk to the pastor. Sometimes you need to talk to someone that has a degree, a doctorate in counseling. Get those things out. Share those things. It will make your life so much better. I'm happy because God, family, therapy saved my life. I'm Pastor Ardell Jones. Thank you for just listening to me for a little while. I'm a survivor of depression. I'm a survivor of ASAD, adult separation anxiety disorder. Honestly, didn't know I would make it here today. But God still had a plan for my life the same way He still has something amazing for your life. Listen, I love to talk to you. You can reach out to me on social media. I'm on Facebook. It's actually Ardell Jones, Ardel Jones, Jones. Hit me on Instagram. My Instagram tag is at Pastor Ardell, PastorArdel, at Pastor Ardell. I love to reach out to you, to talk to you. Listen, you want to shoot me an email? My email address is Pastor Ardell, that's PastorArdel
Thank you, Dr. Jones, for sharing that story. I think what really was the pivotal point was the one person, your admit, who says, I made you an appointment. There were people around who supported you, who loved you enough to realize, we got to do something, and they made an appointment. So we have two therapists on the stage today. I'm going to go with Tony Baker. Could we start with you to give us some insight?
Sure. Well, first of all, let me say that pastors are people too. Before your calling as a pastor, you were a human being. Therefore, we live in a fallen world, and pastors, bishops, elders, deacons, first ladies, they're subject to everything that everyone else is dealing with, including COVID-19, including depression, including anxiety, because we live in a fallen, depraved world, and that's part of the human condition, number one. Number two, pastors are similar to athletes in a way, in that they get on these emotional highs. Because when a lot of pastors are behind the pulpit preaching, that's an emotional high, and it's a rush to preach, to share, and to encourage people. One of the things I think that members and clergy need to watch out for is not when they're in the pulpit, but when they're in privacy. That's when the challenges begin. That's when the depression sinks in. Because when you're behind the pulpit, you're able to excite people, and people are clapping and cheering you on. But that's not the issue. The issue is when you are alone by yourself and you start contemplating problems dealing with the human condition. So I think that's a situation. Number two, he talked about something, and I want to introduce a term that I learned from Dr. Rita Walker, who's a psychologist. She talked about a term called low-key suicide. Low-key suicide. And the definition of that is putting yourself in a situation that could inadvertently lead to premature death. Low-key suicide. And the example she gives is if someone has a kidney problem, but they're still drinking a lot of alcohol. Or someone has problems with diabetes, but they're eating an excessive amount of sugar. So low-key suicide. And I think in the pastor's case, I think that may have been a definition of that and some of the things that you were doing in terms of dealing with the gun situation. And there are a lot of people who they may not have a gun, but they do other things in terms of unprotected sex, in terms of being involved with certain crowds, in terms of doing certain activities that could eventually lead to a premature death. Let me pivot just for a moment and say that I believe this definition is broader than that, because I actually believe that people can speak those types of things over their lives. Let me give you a prime example. Tupac constantly talked about dying of an early death, and he died of an early death. Biggie Smalls constantly talked about dying of an early death, and he died of an early death. Matter of fact, one of his albums was called Ready to Die. Juice WRLD and Mac Miller both talked about overdosing and using drugs in their music, and both of them died of drug overdoses. So what I'm saying is that this low-key suicide definition is not just a health situation, but it's also things that we speak over our lives along with our behavior. In Proverbs 13:12, it says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. And I know a lot of people during this season, they've been disappointed with God in terms of some of the results they've been getting, in terms of COVID-19 taking our loved ones and family members. Some people have been single for a while, and they're waiting on a relationship to turn around. Some people are dealing with chronic health issues, and they're trusting and believing God to get out of those chronic health issues. And I think it's during those times that not only do you need the power of preaching and the power of prayer, but you also need the power of a private therapist. Because there's just certain things that you need to share and get off of your heart that can be better explained by a professional. And let me say this, and then I'll pass it to my other esteemed colleague. When you do seek therapy, you can actually ask for a Christian counselor. If you are someone of a different faith, you can ask for a counselor of that faith and even of a certain ethnic group. So you're just not limited to what's thrown out there. You can ask for the things that you want.
Thank you. Debbie?
Yeah, I agree. I think exactly what that you both have indicated. Dr. Neal, I think the greatest thing that administrator also highlighted is that she got rid of the barriers, or they were able to truly identify the need for the pastor, and being able to, I say, I'm going to take it away so that you don't have to concern about the stigma, being able to talk to somebody. It'll be in a different town. It'll be in a different area. I will walk you through that steps. You just got to walk in through the door. And I think that was one of the maybe life-saving opportunities that happened there. I think that therapists are a great resource. A lot of people may not want to go there. They feel that they can handle it because we've been, I think, driven to be more strength-based. We're always saying, kind of suck it up, that you just walk through and keep holding it on. And eventually at a time, I feel that your shoulders just can't take anymore. And we may lean towards our family, we may lean towards the church, but there is still some, especially with family members, they may be not wanting to hurt you, may not be wanting to push you towards a step. And the therapist comes from the greatest way from a positive thought process. They want you to do better, but they're not going to be afraid of pushing you just a little bit more, getting you to be open. If you say, I don't want to talk about it, they're going to keep going until you get to talk about it. And I found it was wonderful that he overcame the concerns, walking through that stigma, I think, is a hard thing to do because we are felt or raised certain ways. Certain terms are constantly thrown out that, you're crazy, or that if you go to somebody and talk to them or you're crying constantly, that you just are not mentally well. And that's not a positive thing. But having help, asking for help, I think is important to do. And finding a therapist that's right for you is just as important as finding your friend base, that are, have similar thoughts as you. I think is a great way to kind of help support. They understand you, they understand where you're going, and they're going to lead you and help you in a positive way.
I want to say something also too, if I could, please. Recently, we had the suicidal death of a young lady by the name of Arlena Miller. She was a very beautiful, talented 19-year-old cheerleader at Southern University. She wrote a very lengthy suicide letter. I could literally teach a class on the letter that she wrote. But one of the things that she talked about in her suicide letter is you need to check on your strong. So one of the protective factors, but also risk factors, is resiliency. Because sometimes in the midst of resiliency, you can be over-rebellious in your efforts, but not realizing that you're weak in your inner man and in a thought process. And those are the times when you do need help. And this young lady, and if you look up the information online, you see Arlena Miller, very beautiful young lady. She took her life by walking into the Mississippi River. So I'm saying that to say again, just because you are a Christian and you love God, that doesn't exempt you from depression. And if I could just share a couple of very quick things about depression, things that you can do to kind of get out of that, is number one, go see a doctor, primary care physician. Certain ailments such as vitamin D deficiency can mask themselves and look like depression. Another ailment that can mask itself and look like a mental illness is diabetes. The pastor spoke about diabetes. Because of the rapid changes in blood sugar, diabetes can make people have mood swings, depressive episodes, feel anxious, and just feel out of sorts. So I would do that. Number two, I would encourage you to create a playlist if you listen to music. I know I listen to music, and I have a playlist that I listen to like a go-to as to well, when I feel down, I listen to music, and it helps to lift my spirits. Number three, stick to a routine. A lot of times with depression likes to disrupt routine. But if you're able to stick to a constant routine, that helps you to combat the depression and keeps you on schedule. And number four, I would say, we mentioned about find a therapist, but I would also encourage you to continue to combat the negative thinking. Most people who commit suicide, they are not thinking positively. They're thinking negatively of themselves. Question some of those thoughts that are going on in your mind. Ask yourself, am I really unlovable? Am I really a terrible person? Is that really true? Do people really hate me? Question and combat those thoughts. And of course, at the end, as it's been mentioned before, please find a therapist.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing the insight from both of you. And Pastor, you are loved. As we all said, your admit, that person was the pivotal point of saying, enough of this. We're going to change the narrative. And that's exactly what happened, because look at you now. So now, thank you so much. And we're getting ready to move on to our next story.
Summer. During that time, I can say that it was uncomfortable because I didn't know him. I knew of Soul Gospel International Ministries. I'm here today to talk to you guys about how to overcome emotional, physical, and even spiritual abuse. My abuse started when I was about 12 years old. My mom was going through some things. She's a single parent, so she was going through some things, and she needed me and my sister's fathers to get us. So my mom felt that she was doing the right thing to separate me and my sister. So I went to go stay with my dad and my brothers and stepmom for the summer. During that time, I can say that it was uncomfortable because I didn't know him. I knew of him, but I didn't know him. Memories of him I didn't have because my summers was spent with his parents. So my first year staying, with him, it wasn't really any problems as far as physically and emotionally abusing me. The abuse went towards my stepmom. I noticed that, he would, beat her, downgrade her, and all of that. And that was not common for me, being that I was, raised totally different. So, with that came, the verbal abuse or whatever that I saw in the home. And mind you guys, I'm 12. So, you just looking at intake and everything. You really can't do anything. So as time went on, with the abuse, it got worse. It transferred from my stepmom to my brothers. And at this particular time and moment, my brothers was getting, beat, like scared beat, like, are they going to die type, whoopings. And so me, like I said, as a child, I stepped in for my brothers, and, I would take the blame for my brothers. So whatever they did wrong, I knew that they were going to get a whooping for it. So I started taking the beatings for them. So whenever he would ask who did this, I would always say I did, so that I could take the beatings so they wouldn't get hit no more. And this went on from age 12 all the way to 14. So fast forward, here we go to me being up in age, and I'm a girl, so I'm developed at that time. And with the beatings became molestation. So my stepmom will go to work. My brothers, they were younger than me, so they'll be in the room playing or whatever. And he will come home and do things that no man should do to a child. And being that I was 13, 14 at the time, me still not knowing, what was going on or whatever, I just took it. I took it for the safeties of my brothers and also my stepmom, because anything that anybody did that he didn't like, he would take it out on someone else in the home. So I just took it. And then it came a time to where my brothers did something, and it was time for me once again to take the blame, and I took the blame. So of course he knew nobody was gonna come in the room because I'm getting ready to get a whooping. So he made me strip down naked to nothing as a child, now to nothing. And before he would whoop me, every whooping that I got before he would whoop me, he would again do things that a father shouldn't do to their own child. And I took it. And the more I did not cry during the beatings and cry during what he was doing to me, the harder the licks will come and come and come. So at this given time, I had enough, and I was trying to find a way to run away. So when I tried to run away, of course, he caught me before I could run away. So since that didn't work, I jumped out of the window. I tried to kill myself. I jumped out of the window because I couldn't take the beatings no more. I couldn't take the verbal abuse no more. I couldn't take seeing him hit on my stepmom, heads going, in the wall, and as a child, that's traumatizing. And I just couldn't take it no more. And so it was time for me to go back to my mom. But before I could go back to my mom, he was like, I need to teach you, about sex or whatever the case may be. So still a teenager, my stepmom was going to the store, and I was like begging her to take me with her. And of course, she didn't know why I was asking to go with her. And I was like, can I go with you? Can I go with you? And he was like, no, you need to stay here and pay. So she left me behind and took my brothers. And I already knew what was going to happen. Once they left, that's why I was asking her and begging her, could I go with her? So he was like, I'm going to teach you, you going to be out there grown and fast. So I'm going to teach you what you need to know and what you need to look forward to. So me being his child, biological child at that, I'm saying no, I'm screaming, I'm crying, I'm doing all of these things. And again, you have somebody that's supposed to be your protector. You have somebody that's supposed to protect you from men like that, but yet you're getting done like that. You're getting done like the men that they are supposed to protect you from, the men that they are supposed to teach you what to look out for. You're getting done by someone like that. And of course, I, saw him do, drugs, too, as well. I saw him go through the cheating stage with, my stepmom and all of that. And he specifically told me, and he was like, if you tell anybody, you would never see your mom again. And he knew that that was going to get me because all I wanted was to go back home to my mom. So I never told anyone. Now, mind you, this happened to me from age 12 to 14. And I will let you guys know at what age I decided to tell my mom. But after that, I went home to my mom and I didn't say anything. She didn't know. I carried on with my life. But because he did what he did to me, it transpired as I grew up into a young adult and as I grew up as a grown woman. And a lot of times people don't understand that childhood trauma, it damages you in a way that the other party may not know. And especially if you don't express it to the other parties. So as I started trying to form relationships, I went on ahead and I had to tell the individual at the time that I'm dating or seeing or whatever, I had to let them know why I do certain things. I had to let them know why they couldn't touch me certain ways. I had to let them know why I couldn't give them what they were looking for, and some understood and some didn't. And the reason why some didn't is because it didn't happen to them. So they are not going to know how to react to you based on the trauma that was caused in your childhood. And that's what happened to me. In my relationships, I felt like the only way that I could keep a man is to give them what they want and not say anything. Take what they're giving me and not say anything. Because of my childhood trauma, it had me thinking that this is how you keep your mate. This is how you please your man, just by taking everything that they're doing to you. So it hurted me in the long run as I
That story, that was interesting. The fact that you got to some point and you told your mom, I think that was interesting. And I can't wait to hear what the therapists are going to say about this. I'm just speechless. I'm going to go to you, Debbie.
Yeah, first thing that I thought, as she was mentioning how she was taking care of everybody else, that she, took the abuse for her siblings, that she's a protector. She sounds like she has always been protecting everybody else as long as she possibly could to protect even her mom, not being able for her dad to do anything to her mom as well. And it got to the point where she unfortunately could no longer even protect herself and couldn't go through there. And I think that may have been some of the depression that she was going through at that time, which again, just the struggles and horror that she's seen through there. But it's clearly seen that she has moved forward, and she is moving again in a different direction, and being able to express what's going on, and being able to have the courage to share that instead of keeping that in shame or not talking about it. It shows, again, great strength that she has, again, that she identified from her being that protector in the beginning to where she is right now. It's just amazing that she has.
It really is, and I really can see where she would really be a help to young ladies that might be in that same situation and can't talk about it.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I would say with her situation, she dealt with not only complex trauma, but that's chronic trauma. That's where you're constantly being exposed to some form of abuse. And the complex trauma comes in because of the relationships. The fact that this was her biological father that was doing this, who probably, I can imagine, in front of people, he was pretending to be this loyal, wonderful person, but behind closed doors, he's the complete opposite of that. And so that's the one element that we want to bring out. Another thing that Minister Sherry talked about is the fact that she felt trapped. She felt trapped. And because she felt trapped, she wanted to take her own life. And whenever you deal with a lot of complex trauma and chronic trauma, it produces that results in some people as to where they feel trapped emotionally, physically, and they feel trapped mentally as to where they can't escape and they can't get away. She talked about also the fact that she was, as Debbie mentioned, she was a protector. And I think that's interesting because she chose to bear the brunt of the abuse. And she also kind of alluded to that as she was telling her story, and when she was saying, I just gave men what they wanted. That was another manifestation of that complex and chronic trauma coming out, because a lot of people who've been sexually abused, one of the things that they lose is their voice. They lose their voice to speak out. They lose their voice to challenge situations. And as a result of that, as Minister Sherry said, she just figured the way that I'm going to be pleasing to a man is by basically giving him what he wants. Probably exposed herself to a lot of unhealthy relationships and probably went through a lot of continued traumatic situations within that. But I am so glad and amazed that Minister Sherry, you were able to come out on the other side. I just would encourage you to continue to seek help if you haven't already. You mentioned that you're still working through relationships in terms of learning to not only be validated by a man, but be firm and feel confident in who you are as an individual. So I want to encourage you to seek therapy, seek help, to continue to get healing, get renewed, and continue to find your purpose in life.
Thank you so much for your insights. On to the next story. And one last thing, Minister Fuller, we have lots of therapists out there to help you make it to the other side. Thank you so much. On to the next story.
Good afternoon. I am Apostle Latanya Brown, pastor over Warriors Outreach Ministries. I am coming to you, telling you about my story of overcoming depression. Depression takes a hold of us, and it seems like it does not want to release us, but we have the power to be released. Bless your name, Lord God. Coming through my childhood and the seeds that were planted from molestation and abandonment and feel like love lost and left and abandoned, and it allowed depression to take place because I feel like no one was there. No one loved you, no one cared, just nothing. Bless your name, God. So it made me not want to get out of bed. It made me want to stay curled up all the time. It made me want to stay with the lights off. It made me want to stay isolated from around people. It made me want to stay in this place where it was just me. And the spirit of depression is very strong. It is very vital. Bless your name, God. And we go through it and don't know how to come out of it. But in the process of going through, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I had to do something for myself, within myself. There was nobody there that I could reach out to and say, I need help. Why? Because back then in those times, nobody talked about oppression and depression and what it could have been and what it meant. So there was no remedy to it. Bless your name, God. So now that I know the remedy is the Lord and the word of the Lord, which breaketh curses. I remember reciting Psalms 23. And I remember reciting Psalms 23 over and over and over and over until my mind began to shift with the word, until I began to believe in what I spoke, not believe in what people said to me as a child, but I believe the word of the Lord. I go back to say when people spoke things in my life as a child, it made you feel bad. It's telling you that you wouldn't be nothing, you wouldn't grow into nothing, you wouldn't make yourself of nothing, and those seeds did grow. Bless your name, Lord God. But growing up until I came into an alignment with God, that's when depression began to break off my life 20 years later. Psalms 23 was one that brought me along the way. They gave me hope. They gave me life. That let me know that I had somebody in my life that wasn't going to leave me. It felt like everybody that came in left, and it left a hold in me. But when the Lord came in, it filled that void. And I began to study scripture, and I began to study, and I began to study, and I began to decree and declare upon my mind. Bless your name, Lord God. I began to decree and declare when the bed was holding me down that I was going to get up and I was going to live and not die, and that I was going to declare the works of the Lord. The word gave me hope. Again, there was not one in my family that would say, this is what the root of it is. This is what the problem is. So I had to find God and find my solution. Bless your name, Lord God. I know a lot of people go to therapy and they go to talk to someone, and that is great because that is what's needed. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you may not need therapy. Everybody is different. I just needed to find God, and I just needed to have that relationship with the Lord, which changed my life from depression. I have now been released from depression for 24 years. And I thank the Lord for that, finding my journey, finding my voice, saying that I'm not going to stay in that hole, saying that I'm coming out of that hole so that I can live, saying that what someone said into my life and left a seed, that I was able to uproot that seed so that that seed would no longer lead me, but I would lead my way. I say today that depression does no longer live and no longer is a part of my life. Bless your name, Lord God. And if I can do it, you can do it too. If I can ask for help, which I went to the Lord, you can reach out and ask for help. Everybody's situation is different, but this spirit can be broken. Oppression and depression can be broken. You have to believe in you. You have to believe in the word that you speak within you, and you have to know that God has not left you nor forsaken you. You have to know that God is a miracle worker. You got to know that there is nothing impossible that God cannot do if you will just allow him to do it. So today I speak to you.
And one of the things she said was she realized that life is a journey, and her journey she chose was Proverbs 23. That seemed to really be the pivotal point for her that helped her. Different people deal with depression in different ways. And at this point, I want to turn it over to the panelists. Who would like to take this one first?
Sure. So first of all, Pastor Brown, it's wonderful that you made it out, and you said several things that were really awesome. Number one, you said that counseling may not be for everybody, and that is the case. For some people, they are able to use their personal coping skills and their faith to combat different depressive episodes and situations that may come up. And I'm glad you said it that way, because you wasn't discouraging people from not going to therapy. You were simply saying for you, that wasn't the case. I want to talk about a couple other types of depression, because it's interesting that we're on this subject. And I think during the break, we were talking about various coping skills. And I mentioned about music, but everyone may not like music. Some people, I think my panelist, cohort Debbie said, some people may run, some people may take walks, some people may take baths. You know, that's very therapeutic for some people. But whatever you do, that's something that you should certainly hone into to deal with your depression. But there are other types of depression that people deal with. There's situational depression. That's where there's certain things that may cause depressive episodes. Excuse me. And another type of depression is what's called, it's not COVID, I just got a cough. I'm good. Another type of, people cough nowadays, is people say COVID, it's not COVID. So another type of depression, though, is seasonal depression. And in seasonal depression, this is triggered by the holiday season. And it typically starts during the fall. Now I know as we do this tape, we're in the summer, but seasonal depression, thanks Bishop, I appreciate it. Drink some water. Seasonal depression does occur during the fall months, Christmas, Thanksgiving, the holiday season, when people may be missing loved ones and relatives. That's when seasonal depression occurs. Another coping strategy, then I'll pass it on to my esteemed colleague, is doing new things. Because when you do new things, that alters brain chemistry and it increases the dopamine levels in your brain. So I just want to encourage you to continue to move forward and stay vigilant in that area.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Depression can hit at any time. It could be happening multiple times in your life. I think that sometimes it's those changes that happen. It could be everything from when you're a child and you are going through things because you are being picked on, because you're not feeling like you're connected with a social circle. Or it could be when you are moving off of leaving school and you're moving on into a different world. Again, you're feeling different. Or if you're going, your children are leaving. Depression can hit at any time. I think some of the key things to be looking at is that we all feel blue. We all sometimes have a bad day. It's when it starts perpetuating for several days, weeks, that it could be a potential indication of depression. If you are feeling less interested in things you found great joy in, if you are no longer liking, listening to certain music, or you don't want to see your friends because you're feeling overwhelmed by that, that could be a sign of depression. And talking to individuals about it, I think, is a step. Sometimes it's that social circle that you have individually that can help you through that. Sometimes it's talking, individually, do it through prayer. It could be also looking at talking to a therapist. Sometimes even advance from that perspective by actually talking to a doctor who helps with medication components that could help, again, pull you through those depression elements. And finding that way of constantly identifying your coping mechanisms, what you can use to lean on when you start feeling a little hint of that depression, I think is a key. I know it did sound, that not feeling depression, but it's a choice every day. Today, I'm going to look at things positively. I think, in this world, sometimes with the negative impacts kind of berating us at every way that we can go, looking for ways of looking for the positive in things can kind of change your mind. If you change your mind, you change your behavior, you change your thoughts. And being in that more positive influences can lead you in that positive direction, I think.
Thank you so much for the insight. One of the things I remember learning in nursing school, mental health nursing, sometimes it's very important to change people, places, and things. Change the people that you are around that might make you depressed. Change maybe the place, maybe go to a different location. I call taking a mental health day is taking a vacation, going to just a different environment and changing the things that you're doing that might be unhealthy. So changing those three things, people, places, and things. So thank you very much. And sometimes a therapist is not a bad idea, Minister. It is not a bad idea. Everybody has a different way of dealing with things, but I love the way one of the former speakers said, yes, he has God in his life, he has his family, but he also has his therapy. Thank you very much, and on to our next story.
There's not a day that goes by that I don't think that when I walk outside my house that my kid's father will be there to physically harm us. So that's number one. Number two, I'm making this video because I don't have justice for myself. You know, I talk a lot about, you know, I want justice for my stepfather, the people that killed him, my child's father, just different things and different things going on in the world. And I never really talk about myself and my own story, so I'm going to do that today. And basically, I'm going to give you a little background story. Growing up, I had a pretty good childhood. I had some things go on that I'm not really going to touch on, but I did have some things go on in early life that may have led me to start acting out, if that makes sense. At a young age, I was doing things that I shouldn't do, and that's why it's important to stay on your kids at a young age and let them know that they're loved, because if not, there's that potential that they'll look for it somewhere else, which is what I did. Not saying that I didn't have love growing up, because I say it all the time. I had a family that genuinely loved me, but I just feel like there were some things, you know, some other things that that's not what I'm here for today. So anyways, I got married young. I was maybe, I think I was 17. I got married to my son's father, Gerald. I had already had a daughter with my daughter's father, and he had got killed, but me and Gerald were already together long before that, so that's neither here nor there. But in 2015, I met this man named Leonard. I was in a dark place at that time in life, and me and my cousin, we were living out of a hotel. So it was like really a rough patch. I had, you know, my two kids, Aaliyah and Gerald. So it was just really like a rough patch in my life. And when I met him, it was just different. He was this tall, dark-skinned man, different from what I'm used to, like tall, dark-skinned from Alabama. It was just really different for me. And I don't know, we just clicked. Like, it was just instant. And we hit it off. And from there on, like, we were inseparable. And I remember I was like, knew him for like 2 months, and I found out I was pregnant, and I was like, oh my gosh, so ashamed, so embarrassed. Like, you know, I already have 2 kids, and there's a red car, no, just flew past. So I do have 2 kids already, so I was just really ashamed and embarrassed, and I didn't know what really to make of the situation. Like, do I get an abortion? Like, what do I do? And he was like, no, I'm gonna be here for you. Like, he let me know everything was okay. So then, like maybe, not even, I would have been maybe 2.5, 3 months, New Year's rolls around. And this is the first instance, which was a red flag, but I was only 19. So, I was still a kid. And that's why I say it's important to let your family know that you love them, because I was embarrassed. I didn't want to tell my family. You know, I had already had 2 kids. My life wasn't going great. Me and my cousin, you know, thank God I had her. Shout out to Janisa. Like, it was just a rough patch. So we were at this New Year's party, and I remember he was doing Percocet 30s. There were these like little blue pills, and I could just like vividly remember, like, that's a lot. I had smoked weed before, you know, but I had never done pills or anything, and I'm just like, that's a lot. And I think that's a, you know, like I said, another red flag. But I didn't say anything. I didn't think anything of it. And he had pulled me into a bathroom, and so we're in this bathroom, and we're talking, and like mid-sentence, he pulls out a bag of Coke and puts it on the counter and just got to work. And I'm sitting here like, oh, heck no. Like, but I said H-E-L-L. That's exactly what I said. I was like, oh, hell no. I'm like, I know I am not having a baby with a crackhead. Because at that point in my life, I had done so much. And I just knew, like, you know, Tierra, you've led a rough life this far. Like, don't keep risking your chances, especially, like, how does that look? Like, how does that look? So I'm like, Oh, hell no, I'm about to have a baby with a crackhead. No, I'm not doing that. Next thing I know, he just walled off and punched me in my head. And I like fell back into the shower and I was just in a daze. And I got up. I wasn't crying or anything. I was like just shocked, stunned. Like I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, did you just hit me? And he got to crying, talk about, baby, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. And he was just all dramatic about it, but like rushed me out the house and we left the party and went back to the house and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But that story right there, I'm gonna let you know, if you're in a relationship and a man puts his hands on you one time and he cries and I'll never do it again, please, baby, don't listen. If it's a girl doing it to you and you're a man, it's the same situation. Baby, do not listen to them. If they do it once, they'll do it again. That's the thing. And once you forgive them, it opens up that door to let them know that it's okay. And it's not okay. Nobody should ever put their hands on you. And once again, I wasn't secure in myself because I had been through so much at that point. My confidence level was up to here. Like growing up, I was never ugly. I always had that confidence, but I just was never like, I don't know how to explain it. I just had been through so much, and I had just lost my stepdad. I had just lost my daughter's dad. Me and my husband had separated, so I was really just in a dark place. Let me calm down because I might cry.
She says something very powerful, that she lives in fear every day. That is such a miserable place to be in, as to where you're constantly feeling in fear. And if you're in a domestic violence situation, just a couple of quick tips. Number one, try to avoid places in the house where there are weapons when you do feel tension arise. Because a lot of times those persons, they may reach for a weapon or they may physically try and punch or harm you themselves. Number two, know what the exits are in the home. I know that may sound so unusual, but know what the exits are in the home. If you live upstairs or whatever the case may be, find out where the exits are in the homes where you can quickly exit the place. Number three, always have a bag packed and ready. If you have children, have a bag packed and ready for your children. So that way, when you do get the chance to leave, and if you're in a chronic abusive relationship, then you need to leave and leave everything else there. Number four, I would encourage you to talk to Debbie mentioned and Dr. Nim mentioned about finding a therapist or someone that you trust that you can confide in, and develop code words. Code words, whatever that code word may be, as to where if you are on the phone with that individual and you use this particular word, they'll know what's going on and they'll know what to do. And then finally, you need to call 911. You need to call 911. And particularly, let me say this, if you are a person of faith, a lot of times we may pray and we may ask God to do something. But I believe that God gives us the ability to do things within our own perspective and within our own reach. And those are some very practical steps that you can utilize to help you to overcome this situation. And as it's been alluded to before, you will certainly need therapy, because a lot of times in those type of relationships and coming out of them, there's a lot of confusion. And when you're still trying to go through healing and when you're dealing with a lot of damage internally, you'll wind up picking the abuser over and over and over again and cycle through several abusive relationships until, as a young lady mentioned, your self-esteem and your self-worth is pummeled. So I want to encourage you to do those things.
Of violence there. There's also the abuse of drugs that was indicated or that was shared in her story, and that has become she mentioned 2015, this was happening at this time after COVID, the increase of substance use and those who are using it, from the opioid epidemic to just alcoholism as a just self-medications that has been occurring is increasing. And we definitely need to find ways of breaking through, stopping using those drugs to kind of numb the feelings, the negativity that's going through. And a lot of times that is when, like, talking to a therapist, I think, is important to go through.
Thank you. Earlier, and Marlo mentioned of several resources, actually free, where you actually can get therapy for free. And at the end of this, we will have all of the contact information of each of the panelists. At this point, I not only want to say thank you to both of our therapists for analyzing each of your stories, but I want to give each of them the last word as to what would you like to say, Debbie, to the mental health community.
I think the first thing I would bring forward is, we need to work through the stigma. We need to be not afraid to ask the questions. I think we've had some discussion points about talking about those who are strong within and you don't realize the struggles that they're going through. Every time you see somebody, they may have a smiling, happy, strong face that they feel like they can handle everything, but inside they are crumbling or crying every night at. We've all survived 100% of our worst days ever, but sometimes we need some help to get through for that next day coming forward. So being able to not be scared of asking the questions of those we love, saying, how are you, and being willing to listen to how they are and giving them that hand to walk to that next steps. I mean, again, I think I shared it before, your mental health impacts your physical health. It impacts everything that you have. And if you're in a mental status where you're spiraling negatively, it impacts you physically. It impacts, your compounds like sometimes diabetes, weight gain, other components that we have talked about. So it's a whole package, and we definitely want everybody to stay on that positive mental well-being, to continue feeling purpose in their life and finding joy in there. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Baker, would you give us your final words for the mental health community, please?
Sure. I would say, number one, that you're not alone, that everything that you're dealing with, you are not by yourself. So don't for 1 second think that you're isolated and that you're alone. Number two, I thought of a definition of mental health management, and it goes like this. It's learning to adjust and transition through life without being overwhelmed by feelings and intrusive thoughts. And what I mean by feelings, because sometimes good feelings can be overwhelming for people if they have low self-esteem and low self-confidence, and they don't know how to be receptive of the good that comes their way. But the intrusive thoughts is something that really challenges a lot of people. So I want to encourage you not to be ashamed to get help. And I'll leave you with a quote that I always use, and it's this. If you aim too low, there's nowhere to go. But if you aim higher, you will reach your desire.
Thank you. I like that quote. Thank you so much. And this concludes this segment of our Mental Health Summit. We're getting ready to go into the very last segment, and it is the story of forgiveness. A local police officer, his son was shot, but in spite of it all, the person who apparently had mental health issues, who killed his son, he chose to forgive him. And we're going to end our Mental Health Summit with that story. Thank you.
For some reason, we don't know why, he produced a firearm, stood up and started shooting.
Police arrested a suspect today accused of murdering 2 men during an apparent robbery. One of the men murdered was 21-year-old Isaac Brown Jr., the son of a police officer.
The younger Brown was in the right place, but at the wrong time. Tokoya Kreiner was arrested and convicted of killing Brown and a friend and wounding another man.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment.
My name is Ike. It's Isaac. but everybody called me Ike. And a buddy of mine was taking a police exam, and he said, "Hey, let's go take the test." So I figured I would, Lo and behold, next thing you know, I was picking up a uniform, and that was early '86. I was previously married. I had 2 kids by that union, and after 14 years, I got divorced. The Lord blessed me to meet my current wife now, Miss Gina. We've been together about 25 years. We have 3 kids together, a son and 2 daughters, and I have a stepdaughter, and we have 3 great-grandchildren. Not great-grand, but great-grandchildren. My firstborn, we have the same name. He's Isaac Jr. He loves sports, football and basketball. I think basketball was his #1 love.
He was a comedian. Like, he didn't meet a stranger. He was just so funny. We had so many memories, like when we were younger. He was like the class clown. Like, everybody loved him. He just was very comical. So people just liked his personality.
The beauty of Isaac is, I've always said, I never, as he grew up, got a call in the night of him being in trouble, no call from no parent of, you mistreated my daughter, and, he was just always a good, mannerable, young man, and very proud to have had 21 great years, 21 years.
Police say it all happened here on Town Square Drive. 3 friends were playing video games at the home of one of their girlfriends. Another man was there too, police say. He's now charged with 2 counts of murder. Police say it looks like the 2 men that were killed, 21-year-old Ike Brown Jr. and 21-year-old Jeffrey Hicks, didn't know their killer all that well.
These fellas don't have any connection to our shooter. They don't have any connection to anybody except Gavin Berry, who they were visiting. And that's why I'm making that point, is that, it just seems to be that they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Mr. Berry, how many gunshots do you think you heard? At least 7.
Gavin Berry described what it was like seeing his 2 best friends shot to death in his home back in May 2002. Prosecutors say this man, Takoya Kreiner, pulled the trigger.
He was sitting in the back portion of this room, armed with a .380 caliber firearm.
Jeffrey Hicks, Isaac Brown Jr., and Berry played video games. Kreiner sat back. They say he pulled out a gun and started shooting.
Gavin Berry will tell you the next thing he knows is pop, 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 pop. All successive gunfire in rapid succession.
Hicks and Brown's family sat in the front row of the courtroom listening to every word. Brown's father, a Jacksonville sheriff's officer, left when graphic details of the murder scene were played out.
Early that morning, the doorbell rang, and like, man, who could this be, and when I opened the door, my chief was standing there. And believe it or not, that didn't really surprise me. And then my sergeant was there, and I'm like, man. And then my lieutenant, they all was there together, and still nothing clicked. But behind my lieutenant, I saw the chaplain. I saw the police chaplain, Chaplain Crosby. And when I saw him, I knew something was wrong. And I think the first thing I said was, "Hey, Chaplain Crosby, why are you here?" He didn't say anything at the time. My sergeant spoke first. And he told me, he said, "Ike, I got to tell you, that your son Isaac Jr. was killed." And that pretty much did it there. That pretty much broke me down, and it's kind of unbelievable. What do you do? What do you do? Pretty helpless feelings.
Cry if you must, but we came to celebrate. Can I get an amen to that? We came to celebrate. We came to celebrate. We came to celebrate. Amen.
I always said if you hurt one of my children, or my family members, man, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you. I'm hate you. I'm supposed to hate you. I convinced myself, God want me to get you. This my child. And of course I get there, and he comes out, and I'm seeing him for the first time. I loved him. Didn't know him. Never seen him before. Didn't know his family. Didn't know his background, but I loved him. And I still can't explain it. I didn't have the feelings I thought I was gonna have. I know for sure now it was God's love, God's grace. And later I would say to myself, wow, maybe he is doing something in me that I didn't even know was taking place, because I questioned myself. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why don't I feel this way? Why don't I feel the way I thought I would feel? But through all my whys and wondering, I still, trusted that, hey, God was in control, and I just forgave him.
Channel 4 cameras are rolling when emotions from inside the courtroom spill out into the hallway after a jury finds Takoya Kreiner guilty of first-degree murder.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment.
Kreiner's family so stricken with emotion, they can hardly stand. Brown's father, who was a Jacksonville sheriff's officer, was in the courtroom every day.
I'm just glad the week is over. Glad it's over. And I can find some peace.
After Takoya was sentenced and he went off to prison, I always kept him in my prayers, and wonder, how's it going? What is he doing? How is he surviving? And so I wanted to talk to him. So I would write letters and I'd throw them away. You don't want to hear from me. What will he say? I don't want to hear from you. I'm doing 3 life sentences, and so all this is going through my mind. So I would never mail them, and one day I decided, hey, I'm gonna write a letter and I'm gonna send it to him. And I did just that, and in that letter, I said, hello, this is Mr. Brown. I said, I hope things are as well as they can be. I hope all is well, and I let him know that, he was always in my prayers, and I'd always be, mindful of him and thinking of him. And at the end of the letter, I said, I need to ask you for a favor. I said, I miss my son, Ike Jr., and I said, I'd like you to fill in for him till we all get to heaven. We can write, we can laugh, we can talk, and I said, and if not, I understand. And I mailed the letter off, and it took about 3 weeks to a month, to get a response back, and I get a letter, and I'm scared to open it, because I don't know what it's gonna say. I don't know, if you're cursing me out, leave me alone. I don't want to hear from you, and so I opened that letter, and it said, Dear Mr. Brown, I now know that God is real, and I told God that if I heard from you, I would give my life to him the rest of my days. And he was sharing this with me, and he said, Mr. Brown, you asked me for a favor. You asked me, can I fill in for, Ike Jr.? And he said, I'm not qualified, but if you'll have me, from this point on, you're my dad and I'm your son.
My name is Takoya Kreiner, and I'm currently serving a life imposed sentence. This man, Mr. Brown, that I had come to know and grew to love, and to now call, my dad, my father. God has such a greater plan. We're just parts and characters in the role. this was an opportunity, you know, God was using me and him as vessels, you know, to not just show, you know, people that was around or, you know, close to or familiar with our relationship or our situation, but the world, what love was, you know, what love truly was, you know, some of the divine attributes of love. At first, it was strange. And, you know, over time, I was able to, you know, realize, you know, this is beautiful. And I learned to embrace it more and more. And that love that I began to have grew more and more for my dad. And I was just waiting for this opportunity to be in his presence, to see and feel it. And when I was given the opportunity to see him for the first time, and back in 2009, he ran up on me and he wrapped me up in a bear hug. I didn't know what to expect. I was like, whoa, here you go. But I seen him, I didn't know what to expect. You know what I mean? I really didn't. I didn't, because I was waiting for this opportunity. And when he ran up on me, I was in shackles and chains, you know. I didn't know what to expect. You know, when he ran up on me, he wrapped me in a bear hug, told me he loved me, squeezed me tight, you know. And it felt good, man. It felt real good. That's when I knew it was genuine for real. We as, you know, just flesh and blood, mortal beings, we're given a lot of things that we don't deserve. And that's what grace is. It was a beautiful thing. And this is why, you know, I embraced it. I embraced this opportunity.
Christ died for us. Through all of our mistakes, through all of our faults, he forgives us. It's just as simple as asking, you know. He won't find you. You know, he won't hold it against you. You know, he won't hold your mistakes against you. Just ask for forgiveness. Believe God. I know it looks bad, you know. I know you're struggling, you see no way out, but I'm telling you, if you would trust him, I just tell you to trust God, no matter what. Trust God.
Wow, wasn't that miraculous? The story of forgiveness. I mean, obvious this person had mental health issues. And Mr. Ike Brown was able to somehow find forgiveness in spite of him murdering his son and his son's best friend. With each and every single person on the panel, with each and every single person who told their stories, that is how we overcome. In the end, we have to have forgiveness in our heart so that we could thrive again, so that we can find hope, so that we can find faith, crazy faith, so that we can move on to the next level. I hope you enjoyed our mental health summit. It was quite differently than any other summit we have ever done. We wanted it to be interactive. We wanted it to be different, but more than anything, informative. The next screen, you will have different resources where you can get in touch with each of the therapists that was on this stage, each of our panelists. We would like to say thank you to our sponsors, each and every last one of you, for making this possible. Thank you to our viewers for watching it. I hope that you were able to gain some insight and some knowledge of our Health Disparity Summit today on mental health.
Special thank you from the heart My AARP membership opens the door to hundreds of unexpected benefits. From travel and dining to health and wellness, there's more than I could have imagined. Here, take a look. Finding benefits near me is easy with the AARP website or on my phone with the AARP Now app, which also gives me access to my digital membership card, news, and local events. I can even use my membership to get a phone discount. Plus, now that I've picked up my groceries, I can also eat a little better with delicious, healthy recipes on the AARP website. I can go see movies with free screenings through Movies for Grown-Ups. I can hit the beach or go on tours with travel planning and resources for every budget. And I can easily hit the open road with access to motorcycle and auto insurance, car rental discounts, and a driver's safety course. As you can see, membership has a lot to offer, giving me access to insurance, work and jobs resources, financial and health tips, as well as shopping and grocery discounts. Not to mention there's loads of information to help me take care of my mom. And there's plenty more at aarp.org/explore now. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go out and use some of my member benefits.